Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Well, I think you can see my partner, John Garamendi, can be a dog with a bone when we're trying to figure out what is the best way to regulate this marketplace and ensure that, American exporters are being treated fairly and that we've got the data and the authority for the SMC to do a good job. And I want to thank John and frankly everybody who's helped us put together the Ocean Shipping Reform Act 2.0, which is being introduced today and does address a number of the issues that Mr. Garamendi talked about in his line of questioning. And I think we look forward to having another robust bipartisan success related to ocean shipping. Critically important. So, Mr. Allen, I want to talk with you. You had mentioned that you weren't sure that OSRA is going to provide enough assurance to folks that they'll have the capacity, they'll have the resources needed when the marketplace otherwise wants empty exports. Help me understand that a little bit more, and in particular, did OSRA fall short someplace?
Well, the first thing I would say is that we believe when you consider the data that supports the total volume of inbound cargo, and you then compare to the spread between import and export costs, you will see a direct correlation to empty sailings. That concerns us. On its face, we feel like there should be guardrails around that. We do not know if OSRA creates those guardrails. As many people have said, the implementation and regulatory regime around OSRA is very much ongoing. And there will be complaints, and there will be rulings, and there will be rules that stand up over time. Your exchange with Chairman Maffei last week, Mr. Johnson, you suggested that this is a meal that may be consumed in courses. I think it was around a bowl of cereal. And I tend to agree with you. And when we understand the impact that comes from OSRA, we will have a better view to what needs to be done next. And I am certain there is more work to be done, and very grateful for the energy in this room to do that work.
Well, since the second bowl of Cheerios is being introduced today, Mr. Cordero, our bill does address some of the things you've talked about, which is having data standards and making sure we've got the information we need to try to harmonize some of the data sharing efforts. And you've been involved in the DOT's FLOW initiative. Talk to us a little bit about where we should be headed from a data sharing and harmonization perspective.
That's a great question, Congressman. And I think the answer is that, as I mentioned before, I think it's fair to say that every sector in the industry has their respective platforms that are evolving. So where we should be heading is how do we integrate these platforms into one integrated system. And I think that's the key that I think we've received, that is the Port of Long Beach, a lot of accolades and from other ports initially, given that we just announced this just a year ago or so. So I think that's the direction, and the more funding that we have for those opportunities, the better, because I think we've gone beyond the question of proprietary interest issues. Not that it's not there, but I think everybody has the comfort that this has to move forward in a way to provide visibility and transparency in the supply chain. And this is what, in fact, the pandemic surface of many issues of the lack of visibility and transparency for the American shipper.
I think you said that very well, and we do need this information. The marketplace needs this information to really be efficient and to well serve American import and export interests. You mentioned proprietary. I mean, help us. Listen, we're going to solve the problem, but give us some guidance on how do we balance the need to protect proprietary information, as well as making sure we've got enough granularity so that people can do something with the data.
Well, I think we're there. I only say that because through technology, stakeholders have been convinced that it's not about the proprietary interest in terms of the data sharing that we're requesting. Everybody has a comfort now that all we're seeking is information to further the visibility and transparency of the cargo movement. So I think that the individual companies or sectors, whether you're a trucking company or a BCO or a terminal or a carrier, I think they now have adjusted to the fact that this is not about providing data that's not relevant to the visibility and transparency issue. So we're there, as opposed to where we were even 5 years ago, where that was a real concern.
Yeah, we've got to have this information if we're going to have the system that, we deserve. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, I yield. And thanks for the committee, the subcommittee for letting me wave on. I'm grateful for your indulgence, and I yield back.